Okay, and then we're all set.
Cool. Coming to you live.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird to think like Worlds is like 2.5 weeks away now.
Yeah, very soon. I just put in for time off for the wedding I got that weekend. Should be nice though. I'm kind of looking forward to it. Would be nice to go to Worlds, but I guess having to go to my cousin's wedding isn't so bad.
I'm sure that'll be a good time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. Cards. We've got a couple major things to talk about. We don't have any because of the biggest of them. We don't actually have any lists to play today. Uh,
Yep. Yeah, I really
because
didn't have time to
I have
mess around much.
yeah I've not done. It's a pretty big change that needs you to substantially alter deck building in a way that, well, let's take a look
Should
at
we
our
just
first
start
part.
there, or should we cover it? We'll do this first. This is earlier news.
Yeah, because this is from a week, a while back.
Yep.
A week.
So this is the current ban list. Well, quotes around current because that's going to be changing soon.
Yep.
Um,
So this was the Intercontinental Championship. This was the top four from each event of these
yep.
three playing in a event that was structured as a Swiss event where 3 losses eliminated you.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool format actually.
Which I've not seen a format like that. No, thanks for the sub. Where like because it's such a small pool, you're basically just playing. Everyone knows everyone there, and you're
Hmm.
playing with.
Yeah, I'm guessing most of these players probably did some research before the event and watched some of the streams and some of the games from the other players.
Yeah,
I probably open deck list too, I would guess. Um, so yeah, probably not a lot of surprises. At
yeah,
least as far as deck building.
yeah. Obviously, on the runner side, it looks like we're in boat sweep 2022.
Yeah, both did very well
Uh,
at this event.
where lat makes up over half of the field. But on the corp side, we did see uh some different bits. I was not familiar with our uh envelopment. Our super heavy logistics that was going with having like a boom hard hitting plan, but obviously you can go into, but
Yeah, so this list like eschewed the kind of typical MCA austerity policy combo, and went for more of just a straightforward kind of like economy fight sort of tag deck, which ended up looking like a really cool list. Like this would produce some very fun games at a small event, I think.
yeah, and worked really well. Like there's a lot of it's like, okay, we have money assets that once they wear off, your launch campaign becomes or a sheeter or a spin or an excavator. um Wall to wall is better than it looks. Urban renewal gives you one of these like threats that has to be run. And then our boom package.
Hmm.
We also saw Jinteki running around. I do remember seeing a overwriter for 6 being a victory on stream.
Ho 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 ho. I think I
Um,
missed that.
yeah,
That's
because
pretty spicy.
so the biggest thing about this deck, and there's a good bit about it in here, about the most powerful card in it, and it's something that as I've been like deck building with it, I'm 100% there in agreement.
Mm.
Is that Mitosis is a wild card. Mitosis is a 3-cost double that's giving you 6 actions.
Hmm.
Like, which so Mushin was a 0 cost that was giving you 2 actions for 4. though a little bit of an overload, and like you know, because you were triple advancing a card. This
Yeah.
one gives you two threats, and in this deck, there's no like, okay, we got Overrider, we got Clearinghouse, we've got Urtica Cipher, we've got, you know, Obakata Protocol, we've
Mm.
got NGO Front. Like there are, and or hell, you could even do, you know, it doesn't say it has to be an advanceable card, just place
Hmm.
to advancement. So you could throw a Rashida under there if you wanted to like hide it. So yeah,
That's
but
pretty cool.
yeah, the thing we'll get a little bit more into boat, but the big thing with boat is that like boat singularly is an expensive card, but like once you commit to boat, you don't need to do anything else like for an eternity. It takes a long time for the corp to run a board that can even contest boat. So so yeah, I really like this deck. The only ice it plays are Anemone, which is just a trap. This is just trash a card to deal 2 net damage,
Hmm.
and uh, Odoroshi.
Otoroshi, which is one of my favorite ice in the
So
game.
Odoroshi here is you can triple advance a card in a remote, and then the runner has to pay 3 to not touch the stove.
Well, it's
And
a 2-cost 5 strength sentry too. I mean, it's like really good
yeah,
stats.
yeah, and like there are so many stoves that if they touch, you know,
Hot, 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 hot.
very bad.
Uh,
I did.
yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, this looks a lot like a Jinteki list I
Well,
might have been playing around
well,
with.
I gotta learn more about cookies.
Ooh, what are
What are
cookies?
cookies? Okay, got it. Thanks. But yeah, so this is the like we've been messing with the Jinteki list, and this is like the cleanest looking one I've seen. It even has like a neurospike, uh, Obakata bit that it can do.
Yeah.
And also Moonpool lets you do like strange murders in the sense of
Hmm.
like you can like clearinghouse for instance you know your opponent might think okay well there's two assets set out there I have 4 cards in hand there's 3 counters on clearinghouse I'm fine pass you just go on step cool Moonpool shuffle these 2 endas in advance whoops you're dead you know like
Hmm.
you can do some surprise wins out of that in addition to the fast advance that Moonpool lets you do. So, really excited with this deck. This is one that I know there was a lot of like talk about like is Jinteki you know P good, and a lot of people are like no, there's nothing there. Um, but like how do you play this you know shell
I
game?
mean, like the thing that Jinteki always struggles with, especially these types of lists, is money. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this definitely is playing the right money cards. NGO, Rashida, Hedge Fund, 1x Hansei.
Yeah, and
I feel like even with that though, it's probably tough to make it enough. Like you probably have to be really lean and spend credits very
you have to be
carefully.
really smart on it, and I would also wager that like an opponent who does have a diversion of funds. Oh boy, like
Yeah, how do you protect against that?
you kind of don't. You just
You hope to draw an ice and put it on HQ, I guess, but
but but but yeah.
maybe maybe that deck kind of gets by because criminal is lesser represented in the meta. They're a
Certainly.
lot less likely to get
I mean,
doofed.
how many doofs were at this event, right?
Yeah,
Like
not too many.
was anyone
Hmm.
like you know APOC?
Um,
I'm literally like because this is you know Hoshiko boat with pad tap, cool, and pad tap and Rozeki and boat. Wow, go figure.
yep. Yeah, this
Um,
was still very much a boat meta, I think.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'm looking and there's
were there any runners not playing boat? Doesn't look like it.
um
Just looking at the deck IDs. Maybe Wu didn't, maybe Adam didn't, but they
I
certainly could have.
Adam likely did. Yeah, here's 2 endurance. Um,
There were 3 Hoshikos.
we can't
It
see
looks
on
like only
these
2 were
two.
claimed.
Wu would be the only one I would think maybe isn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's good coverage of this event.
And then this was the probably the final premier level event until Worlds.
Yep.
There's probably gonna be a few more smaller events before then, but like we said, World is coming up pretty soon, and we got a new ban list too.
Yes. So there was an announcement after this event that there would be a banned list update um, b- at least 3 weeks before Worlds, which translates into the Friday that is 3 weeks before Worlds.
Hmm.
So we can go ahead and take a look at it here. Um, and we have a article kind of talking about the changes here. So, you know, we expected endurance to be a significant shaper toolkit, but how much it warped everything
It's still
was a
surprising.
bit of an outreach. And we we basically, so we had this conversation 2 weeks ago. What's going to change? And they basically had to ask themselves the question we said: do you have to ban a card you released 6 weeks ago?
Yep.
Right? Like, and the answer they went with is we're going to try not doing that, and we'll see what happens.
Yep.
And to that note, rest in piss, won't be missed.
I rather liked the article, but my initial impression from the ban list was kind of negative actually.
Yeah, okay. This is almost to a T what I expected
And so like
on.
there's basically like 2 sets of changes, right?
Yes,
There's the runner changes here, which you're seeing. So that there were 2 cards banned, Pat Tap and Rozeki. Both are pretty ubiquitous drip econ cards, cards that
yep.
consistently pay the runner every turn and really kind of form the backbone of your deck's economy.
If we go back, if we looked at those when we were looking at those runner lists, every one of those was 2 to 3 Rozeki, 3 pad tap. Like
Mm-hmm.
no matter what, because they're one influence, and they are drip econ that's on a strength level that beats drip econ that used to exist. So
Yep.
I have a nice aid over here. This is just looking at when your turn begins game text
Okay.
on cards, and there's a couple here that stand out as cards that people would go out of their way to make work in their deck that are so much
Mm-hmm.
worse than Rozeki.
Yeah.
Data folding here
Mm-hmm.
is a 3 cost, giving you one. And this was heavily played because it would, like, if you had a console that gave you a bunch of mem, or you knew that you could run light, this was a way to continuously gain money.
Yep.
Um, it's sort of like a Rozeki for 2 MU, but they stack easier. Also, it's 3 cost neutral. The one that is just maybe the most wild one that also was around
Mm-hmm.
was Underworld Contact, which you need 2 link to play, which generally meant if you were doing an Underworld Contact setup, you were playing some of the worst cards in Netrunner.
Yeah, even though Link is like printed on every runner ident, it's kind of like the most worthless stat most of the
Yeah.
time.
So Link only has an effect either during a trace or on cards that refer to it.
Yeah.
And Underworld Contact is another 2 cost piece of drip econ. Ones that don't show up here, others that you might think of as like a consistent money source that aren't exactly a drip econ, but are
Hmm.
memorable. Prepaid is going to be.
Yeah.
y-
So there's a lot of like variations on the drip econ cards.
Yeah, but
And like so as an exercise before the stream, I actually went through and kind of picked out a few that I thought were better. And it honestly it did make me feel better about the change. Because I do think there are some pretty interesting drip econ cards still available in the meta that are still pretty good. But just require a little bit more effort than the 2 that were banned.
when I
Um,
hear Link, I think of the consultant. Yeah, Sunny is the one the card that got unbanned. We'll talk a little bit more on 419 here, because 419 is an ident that is when the first time the corp installs a card, expose it unless the corp pays 1. So you're
Mm,
either taxing the corp or you're gaining information. And this got banned for ubiquity.
pretty much.
This was not banned for power level, basically. Um, because it was basically banned because at the time you either were playing Geist, which Geist might as not well be a criminal. Geist might as well be a mini faction that plays in Geist's own world, right?
Yeah.
Like you look at a Geist deck and you go, "What the hell is happening here?" Because there's no way a Geist deck looks like anything else. But at the time, 419 here was the only criminal, and we as we saw, criminal literally didn't exist at the event.
Hmm.
So the idea of pulling 419 off the list is one, like there are other criminal identities that are playable nowadays. So pre this event, we would see Steve. We would see there were a few that we would see. Steve, I think, was the biggest at the time.
Hmm.
But the idea here is, let's 419 roll doubles. Indeed, that's what happened. But yeah, Rizeki and Pad Tap. Pad Tap, for as a note, by the way, Pad Tap was removed from the banned list quite recently.
Hmm.
If I go ahead and hit show history here, you'll notice this period where the card was banned.
Yeah.
And that we're 2 lists forward, and the card has to be put back on it because the amount of Drippycon gets to be too much. One of the things about Drippycon is that Drippycon, like, the more of it you have, the more snowbally it becomes.
Hmm.
If I have 3 pad taps, it becomes so much more of a pain in the ass
Yep.
to deal with them as opposed to one individual pad tap, and then I
Hmm.
take a little bit of time to bop it. Um,
One one interesting little tidbit that was pointed out by Metrable Grid was that 419 and PadTap have been kind of like quantumly linked on the ban list, where one is legal and the other is illegal, and they've been swapping places for a while.
that's true. We had 419 banned at pad taps getting
Yep.
pulled in, so
Just a silly little thing there. I don't think there's any real link between the cards. It just
there was a banner
sort of
Zekia
happens
mode
that
with the
they.
official Nisei Twitch channel. The emote
Yep.
was just the orb. I mean, but yeah, so Rizeki itself has been a contentious card basically since its printing. This was in the very first Nisei uh, release. And this basically the camps are like, okay, Rizeki is cool and fine. It has this balance and it has this like tension with your mem. And there's the other side of what the hell are you talking about? Um
Men become a
when did
cost.
it become a cost?
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
mean that's totally fair. I mean this really is like the first true Drippy con card that doesn't have a drawback.
so what does drip econ reduction mean for 8 cost consoles? So if we go ahead and go back to uh boat deck, I'm there's got to be a boat deck somewhere around here. If we take a look at boat deck, we see 3x Rizeki, 3x pad tap. If we take a look at the way that its boat deck ends up playing, the idea with lat is that your early game like is like, okay, I am able to have a boat around, which I can, maybe I can rig up for cheaper or just play off of, things like Creative Commission. Because you have a couple of these cards that are like burst econ bits,
Hmm.
your Sure Gamble, your Dirty Laundry, your Creative Commission. Creative Commission's pretty cool for, cash for the next turn. But that's what you have. And the idea with it is that you have boat, and once you have boat with like any way of keeping it pressured, like you can't the corp is now under this pressure of how the hell do I do anything? Like I can't score in a server because I would need to have like a 2 deep server that kicks you out twice. You know,
Hmm.
I can't score, which slows the game to a crawl. And if the game is slowed to a crawl, well, I sit on 3 Rozeki and, 3 pad tap, and I just sit here and cross my arms and say, well, I'll draw a card at the end of my turn, and I will slowly build up my board. As I build it up, I'll get
Yep.
up to billions and millions of credits off of my pad taps and Rozekis, while you have to sit there and like find the ultimate combo in order to like even start playing the game.
Yep.
And that's the pressure that Lat puts on the corp. So once you take away the Rozeki pad tap, if you take a look at every other card that produces credits in this deck,
Yeah.
um,
Taking away those two cards takes away a lot of the inevitability of this
there's
deck.
there's no once you take those 2 cards out, every single piece of money is a one shot gain rather than
And
a
there's no recursion, there's no levy in here. There's no
um
way to recycle those.
don't know how to play Netrunner. Does Boat perform as much like it was out of GTA that it looks? It's more like Boat is a skeleton key. I'm trying to think of how a good way to
It's like GTA if GTA only had an ability to give a creature -2/-2.
right.
That's
Sure.
it's just that good.
Like the idea with Boat is that no defense you put in front of it is going to stop you um, at a cost.
Mm,
So, but yeah, so the idea behind the ban on Rozeki and the ban on Pad Tap is that the power of this Lat deck is that its long game was this inevitability machine of, you know what? I know that you can't score. All I have to do is like run R&D once, maybe get put a counter on Boat, start drawing up to my Into the Depths, my actual programs
if
here.
you try to fast advance, I got Clot I can
You know,
pull out to
I
just stop you.
if you try to tag me, I can misdirect. If you try to go wide, I can Parisia.
If you
And
do defend the remote, I still got Stargate to push you on R&D. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
there's
so there's a lot of directions for Lat to push to end the game. But once you have the Boat, it's very hard for the Corp to play a normal game of Netrunner, which is why when we see like the lists as far as like what the Corp is doing right now, it's why we see like, okay, I'm just gonna boom hard hitting news you with a lot of with low impact ice, or like envelopment here has a bunch of subs.
mm.
Mausolus is a 3 sub. Border control.
Sandstone seems like an odd inclusion there. I'm
The idea I
not
think
really sure.
the idea I think on Sandstone was a 3 tutorable.
Sure.
Is I think the idea here, because um like
Afshar, I mean, like I guess I would play two Afshar, but I can see someone going to one.
yeah, but I think that's the idea, is that border control does float in this into a
True.
3, and this is a 3 that's tutorable that says,
And
look,
that's a pretty good end the run too. I
right, like
mean,
so if I'm trying to make a server where I am trying to do something like border
mm,
control, defending urban renewal, and then flipping into sandstone, then then all of a sudden like I have to have a paperclip and get up to 6 on the first or 5 on the first because encounter.
mm,
But still, that's a hefty bit. But yeah, so the idea is that we are finally seeing Rizeki get popped. One of the other things about Rizeki that's so very silly is this one influence down here.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
there's a reason it's in every deck. That said, um, so we've made these 3 changes in order to curb the power of Boat deck, right? And I guess, well, not all 3. We've made Rizeki and Pad Tap to make it so that Boat deck can't have I gain 5 to 6 credits every turn. It's the reason that like Magnum Opus is banned, right? I think the entire reason for Magnum Opus being banned in my eyes is that it gives you the ability to say, you know what, gain 8 every turn. I'm just gonna wait for you to take an action. I have 50 million credits. Let's go. Um, And like
So um
right now with that ban, we're down to like Beth as a recurring credit bit. We're down to Tapeworm as a recurring credit bit, and we're down to
I did come up with a list. I just sent it to you. If you wanna, you can probably import it into JNet. That's probably the easiest way
yeah
to show it. But I just kind of looked for what are the best remaining drip cards out there. Um, and I think there's a decent roster. It doesn't look as bad as I was first expecting.
yeah
Um,
because the
because when I saw this ban list, my first thought was, man, like, what is the runner gonna do at this point? There's just nothing left. And like there's some kind of mediocre cards on here, but there's some good ones too. Keiko, Paragon, Penny Shaver, Prepaid, Chesfa, Fermentor, Tapworm. I think those are all definitely playable. And they all do give you economy unlimited and for minimal cost for the most part.
yeah,
Aesop's
and some of
Beth is
these
legal.
we all do already see. We
Yep.
Aesop's with uh, uh, Harbinger.
Uh, Harbinger, yeah. Yep.
Aesop's Harbinger. Paladin is a card that's seen in almost every um, Anarch list because
Yep. And there's a whole suite of them, but I only picked that one
yeah,
because it's the best one.
yeah. The one of the differences that we get with a lot of these is that they incentivize forward action or have a limit on how long they'll work. Like you can't Aesop's forever.
True. And
Um,
Aesop's usually demands that you build your whole deck around it to some
yeah,
extent.
or
Um,
your cards costing less with Paladin Poemo or DZMZ only works as long as you have cards to install.
and you can't stockpile that effect really.
Penny Shaver. Penny Shaver, you kind of can get
Yeah.
a lot of it, but like the idea of like these end up being like if we're talking about the boat plan, which is like literally just kind of sitting there and letting the drip go. You do need
Mhm.
to, most of these ask you to take some form of forward action or are already cards that we don't. Fermentor is not a card that
Yeah, I mean
oh my god.
honestly that honestly probably doesn't even qualify as a true drip card, but it's a
It
good enough
is.
econ card that I think
Yeah.
could take the place of those other cards.
Yeah. So um damn, my 419 Dex influence is
Yeah, it's not a legal list, but just to
yeah.
illustrate.
But yeah, and then of course 419 being thrown up
Unleashed.
is
Yeah.
basically, hey, we kind of want criminal to if I can go back to the article here, explanation of changes. Uh, the goal for the ban list is to tackle the steady rise of drip econ we saw over the year. Cards like Rozeki went from being singleton includes to an entire economic engine, feeding decks like Big Macs, which were particularly good at bringing many copies of them into play. For that reason, we decided from the multitude of ubiquitous trip cards, Rozeki and Patep were the best targets. With their low influence, they saw play in all factions. Also, every deck. Like,
Hmm.
again, like, I think Patep, Rozeki, I don't think was a 36 out of 36 slot wise. But I think Patep might have been. Like, I wouldn't,
Yeah,
we don't have all the lists, but would be
pretty
surprised.
close. Yeah.
Um, the intended consequences of these bans is that the runner economy becomes more finite, thus enabling
Hmm.
corp strategies that try to bind the runner in a long economic downward spirals, uh, such as with uh, you know the NBN style
Yeah, Sokka's
reality plus.
Econ War deck. I don't know
Yes,
what you call it.
yeah. As a preempt to this, there are two other changes on the list. Up here. It's a ban on preemptive action
Hmm.
and a ban on archived memories.
Hmm.
The idea is that this is a bop in order to make sure that we don't just have like now that there aren't like strong drip econs, we don't have just a deck that goes, you know how many times I'm gonna play Market Forces
Market
on your
Forces.
ass?
Yeah, honestly, that feels like an admission of how strong that card is, because that's what you want to keep playing over and over.
Yeah, it it's literally a
It's very reminiscent of a certain deck that you used to play,
yeah,
actually.
and something we mentioned before. This card is if the runner's tag for each tag that you lose 3 and you gain 3 for each, one for each credit lost. Which reminds me of I'm taking a look at this store champs list from fictional, but this is a list that I also brought to a store champs back in 2014 or so,
Mm,
with the idea of I have a 40 card deck. I'm going to play Account Siphon. I'm going to same old thing, play Account Siphon. I'm going to levy AR, play more Account Siphon. I'm going to draw a million cards until I draw more Account Siphon. And then I'm going to Account Siphon again. And then I'm thinking I might Account Siphon you some more.
yep.
And
Yeah.
then,
What's the term? NPE?
yeah, so like the idea with this list back then was you just literally siphon them for an eternity. You never let them have a single dollar, and that was it. And
Yep.
that's effectively what the NBN deck with the 3 spin doctor, 3 archive memories. Um, Looks like we're not playing um, preemptive because we get spin
Oh,
doctor
yeah. Wow.
free in here.
I thought it was playing preemptive.
No, but the idea is like you can just play this an infinite number of times. You market forces pick it up, market forces spin doctor, shuffle the 2 back in, or whatever card is most effective for you. Uh,
Hmm.
Now the issue here is that we do know from what we were looking at previously when we were looking at our data from Continentals was that Runner Corp were about 50-50 equal almost exclusively on the back of lap
Yeah.
mode.
Hmm.
And the worry is what will pick up that hole, or will we enter in a world where Corp now is just heavily advantaged? I obviously, I mentioned that these 3 were like flat the ones that I expected, like these 2, and I wasn't as certain on 419. I'll be real, but it
Hmm.
makes sense because Criminal is in a non-existent state in the meta. But like in order to balance this equation, you either need to give runner more tools, or you need to put a bop on the corp. We had talked about possibly does Fairchild go back on the list, or
Hmm.
do we hit Bologna? Does that get hit, or do we hit maybe a couple of PD's tools?
Hmm.
Um, And the idea here, it's even mentioned down here. There are a few cards that came in discussions for problems arising in the broadband of drip economy. Bologna with its strong economic swing on steal and score. Luminal's transubstantiation, which is the
Yeah. I think I mentioned that one on our stream.
yes, I believe you did as well. Did I?
Luminal
Yeah.
transubstantiation.
Feeling
And
infection struggling for pad taps and
Mati Mukundu. My God. That is a terrifying. That is not a card I ever considered unbanning. Terrifying prospect.
yeah. So you know but the idea there that they have is that if we hit this loop, we won't at least have the pile of the NBN list that
Yeah.
is I actually don't have it here, that is doing this infinite recursion.
Yeah.
However, one of the side bits here is that these preemptive um
Not a huge loss for Corp, honestly.
preemptive means that everybody has to pay the spin doctor tax now, no matter what. Like
But people were already
people
paying
are,
that
yeah.
tax.
And Archive Memories was more played in. It
I
is
think
it,
mostly boom
yeah. I was
decks
gonna say
lately.
is a loss that will make boom decks less reliable. Like
Mm-hmm.
when we were playing, that was what I think you killed me by having both, but one of the
Yep.
things I was most scared of was that at some point you would draw preemptive, go preemptive one, boom, two, three, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Or you mean archive memories?
yeah, yeah,
One,
yeah, yeah,
two,
yeah, not
three.
yeah. Archive memory. I said preemptive, but meant the other. So
Yeah. Preemptive is much less of a loss. It's unlike Spin Doctor, it's a card that can let you refill your deck versus just kind of staying neutral on card count, which can help the game go longer, and you can kind of stack your deck by putting in, 3x of a card. If you
yeah,
only have like 12 cards left in your deck, it's a huge amount of
but
I
but
guess proportion of that card.
but it's quite funny to me that like the idea here that is we've hit archive memories is not really in a vacuum like that. Oh wow, a zero cost regrowth is too good because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of decks don't include this, and you only really are playing it in the deck that's very specifically looking for either recurring cards that are very fragile or playing the same card 200 times, and it's that one that ends up being more of an issue when it but not alone in a vacuum, like because
Mm-hmm.
just archive memories isn't enough to make that a problem. It's archive memories plus spin doctor plus
Yeah.
everything that makes you able to have like 15 copies of hard hitting news or whatever.
And honestly, it's probably for the best that that gets banned. I think it can open up new design space for stronger operations and stronger trashable operations,
Yeah, I
which could
mean,
be kind of interesting. It's a card that's been in the game since core, so it definitely like there's a sort of a sentimental attachment to it, I guess. But
yeah, it's been around for a long time. My worry is more that this doesn't balance the scales enough. I worry that we are going to enter when we look at worlds, we're going to see
yeah, I mean,
either
I it's
like it's going to take a lot of well for one it's actually kind of funny because this is going to pretty heavily affect like obviously like we'll see will boat still be around.
mhm.
I feel that the card's powerful enough to still be extant. In what way? It doesn't have the same econ engine. Will it be a more
It
aggressive
won't be
deck?
the same kind of deck. Yeah, it'll be a different style of deck that plays boat, I think.
Yeah, or
Um,
and then like will we see what we're seeing currently with corp decks where there's a lot of ice choice and card choice made specifically because boat exists. I'm just
yeah.
going to play fast advance because it's not worth playing any ice. This is stupid.
I
Um,
think there's about 100% chance that Adam still plays boat because you can literally just play it for free. Um, by pitching a femme fatale or something to it.
yeah, and we'll see.
Um,
We'll likely see the cat. I would suspect like with the ability to continuously charge the boat in an easier way,
mhm,
um, be extant.
yeah,
Perhaps more of a deep dive win condition deck. Perhaps more of a um, and then but then the corp also shifts because it no longer needs to. It may no longer need to worry about the same at least end game. It still needs to worry about the card itself though.
yeah,
The boat is not gone. It's still there. It just lost the money around it. And I'm not certain if that's. I mean, I agree that Rozeki pad tap. Like, put me in the camp that does not like Rozeki. I'm there. There's I I think it just is too efficient at what it does. It's the end game of all drip econ. There's nothing else that you can't get more drip than Rozeki.
yeah, yeah,
Um, um, so its existence makes things like Underworld Connections or a lot of the cards that you put up or data folding kind of moot because why would you choose to do those over Rozeki?
mhm,
So,
very true.
but yeah, a
Yeah,
lot
I,
of
I was just gonna say I think your fears are founded that the meta is going to shift towards corp favor. It's pretty clear I think that this ban list definitely hits runner harder. I mean, it basically
yeah,
hits every runner deck that was doing
Yes,
well and hits one corp deck that was doing well.
yeah,
Like
1.5, I guess, because
yeah,
we have a minor,
boom and stuff like that.
we have a
Yeah.
minor hit to boom decks and a major hit to
Mm,
recursion.
yeah. So I think it's probably likely that we'll see a corp edge develop. I also think too though that runner's edge in the I guess previous meta, the meta that is now leaving with this change, um, was not fully developed either. Like I think if that meta had more time, we would have seen runner gain more percent over the corp. Especially as the corp strategies are more developed and known about and can be played around, and bullets can be played to counter certain cards. I think we might have seen that lat deck and creep up towards like probably 60%, 70%
Yeah,
win rate, maybe
I
even, you
mean,
know?
we did see lat was at 60% in the data, and so
Right. I guess I'm thinking more of like a global runner win rate of 60%
yeah,
on the back of lat,
yeah,
really.
and that also does make sense, especially like I was again very surprised to see the 50-50 split, but
Mm.
the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you. Uh,
Uh,
but we've what this does though is it does put on the runner side, we definitely see a major retooling is going to be needed for what the runner is doing, because again, if I go back to always be running, and I take a look at intercontinentals, all these decks are ones that are running Rizeki pad, and like they're going to have to rethink what their economic engine is if they want to even still play that list. There's not really a clean one-to-one slide in,
mhm.
so what direction do you feel like going? And then do we see more? Maybe we see an evolution on Hoshiko that uses money in a different direction. But again, we see three fat tap, and
Yeah.
so do we end up seeing fermenter, as you mentioned? Do we end up
Mhm.
seeing but on the corp side, the change is not going to be as much on cards that got banned, but like reaction to the runner, because at the core, both sides here are always in a back and forth reacting to the other side. You can't design a runner deck without thinking about what your corp is doing. You can't design your corp deck without thinking about what runners are doing against you. And you can
Mhm.
only choose so many cards, what ice you play, what operations you choose, what your win con is. Depends on what you think your opponent's doing. It's why, it's why I think we see a heavy sports metal P and like ob with boom as win cons, is because those are ways to sidestep the boat. So, but
Right.
so that means, will these be threats in the same way? Will they change the way they build?
Yeah, I do wonder if we're maybe vulnerable to like a fast advanced corp strategy becoming too powerful. I mean, we're already seeing a pretty significant number of sports, and there's
Yeah,
probably a few fast advanced PDs in there too.
yeah.
Um,
It's always been funny because like I always think of criminal as one of the stronger ways of being able to like push and be aggressive at the corp, but
mhm.
then you but they're also the worst at playing clot, like ever.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So, but yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at. We've got all like so two kind of small bits. We have our our ban list changes, and we have our event results. We've got worlds coming up in 16 days. 17, yeah, 16, 17 days. So we're gonna see, you know, pretty shortly, what comes out of this. Yeah,
Mhm.
right here, World Championship.
Yep, and there's going to be a few events too, I think. So there's going to be a lot of fun to be had at the event if you're going, and if you're not, there's
Yep.
going to be a lot of things to tune into and check out.
So
Um,
this list is effective as of Friday. So uh, yeah, but yeah, at Worlds there's a whole bunch of events going on.
yeah, the Crown of Servers team tournament. And there's a
Oh,
startup world champs too.
that's cool.
I've been hearing some rumblings about startup and how it's in desperate need of a ban list.
Yeah, there's like a note here that was like, uh, sorry we didn't touch it.
Yeah,
That's it. Like,
yeah, and I get it. It takes time, and you don't want to half-ass a ban list. That's just unfair to everyone who loves the game. But seems like there's probably need for some changes.
yeah. So yeah, I think that's kind of all we had for today. Today was like we really only had a couple small things to talk about, and because of the changes, really don't have lists that are going to be relevant to look at. We're playing in a dead format, or we're playing in a future one where we need to make some changes pretty heavily.
Yep,
So,
it'll be
um,
very interesting to see how things develop and how everything shakes out.
funnily enough, I wonder if like okay, we lose archive memories. We like how much of a loss is that for our full suite here of reality
Yeah,
paths?
there's probably a more like tempo-oriented version of this deck that doesn't care as much about recurring market forces.
Yeah,
Um,
or just still does it.
or yeah, or just still does it because it
Like
can.
it's just not as strong as it was.
Yep.
Just because
And yeah, there are other recursion pieces for Corp. I guess maybe worth looking at quickly.
there are 60 cards with the word archives, and almost all of the recursion pieces install a card
Yeah, there's one I remember that's like you get back a copy of a card and then RFG the rest.
that
It's
installs
like
it.
a bad archive. Oh, that installs it. Okay.
Yep. That every single I just did the search
Okay.
here, so we're gonna go corpse side, just the word archives, fifth rotation, current band list, and then yeah,
Oh,
40,
there's distract the masses.
40 cards. So Ansel here, install a card from archives.
Yep. Trust operation install, restore install, Kakarenbo install,
uh,
add blitz install.
yep. Brand
Um,
install.
the only one I think that's not is distract the masses, and that's not a good card.
No,
Yeah.
it really ain't because you have to give the runner money
Yep.
for that.
Cost -2 credits.
Everything else like drudge work and attitude adjustment specifically call out agendas.
Drafter I think doesn't. I think Drafter just lets you pick
Drafter
up a card,
Drafter does let you
right?
pick up a card. Yep.
Yep.
Drafter will let you pick up a card.
And Cell will not. It lets you install.
Hmm.
Gatekeeper you can shuffle back. That's actually still solid. Maybe you see
Genotyping.
Gatekeeper pulled out of action more.
Trash the top two cards of R&D, then shuffle four cards into R&D.
Yeah, I mean it's an option
Yeah.
if you have to.
um.
Strong Humanity is still a pretty interesting ident.
And then we have you can play currents from archives.
Oh boy.
Let me go ahead and take a look at I guess Vitruvius over Advance.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah, that's real. That's real.
PD's active.
Yep, yep. PD is active ability.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there's nothing on the level of because the one that did install was like yeah here restore
Mhm.
install and res one card from archives paying all costs remove all other copies.
Yeah. Oof. Oof.
Um,
I mean, you are getting some click compression, I guess, but oof.
yep. So
First Op's pretty cool though. I'm looking forward to seeing more of that card.
Yeah, we have the world champ events and such.
Yeah, if you haven't already figure out your plans, it might be too late already. Don't know the deadline. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's gonna be a great time. Really sad I'm not gonna be able to make it.
Yep. So yeah, I think that's gonna be it for today. Again, short one. That's okay. We will have more in the future.
Mm,
Honestly, I'm super excited for what Worlds is gonna look like and like what the fallout from that event
yeah, we'll have to
is.
do a whole slew of videos on those
Yeah, because there'll be a lot of
matches. That'll
lists.
be cool. Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, I think that's gonna be it. Again, short one today. That's okay. Um, make a deck. I think right now, like the thing is, a lot of our what we have is already like built up as far as like I'd still like me, I'd be considering like
I mean,
Hoshiko
what would
or
what would 419 look like to you?
it would look
Or
like
do you
every
think there's like nothing there?
419 doesn't have nothing there. It's just 419 would look like 419.
Yeah.
Definitely weird to go into worlds with no major events. Yeah, there's nothing. We have like there's going to be 2 weeks of you know like online smaller events, and that's all we'll have for for that. I would expect 419 to just kind of look like what kind of a normal 419 looked like back in the
Kind of like a regular criminal reg
yeah
crim style.
yeah this not this one here, this one's but like the breaker suite might have worked here, the Miss Bones with it with the Earthrise daily casts.
Yeah. I
um
mean, there's no turning wheel, but that could be a Stargate
yeah
or
uh your penny shaver could be there's a number of directions there, but like Crim, one of the things Criminal kind of has that's as we've mentioned when we were looking at Crim in the most recent in Midnight Sun, it's that there's just not it kind of only has one major plan.
yeah.
So yeah, the all of the events at Worlds are going to be wild with how little information is going to be going into it. What are people going to be on? Very difficult to say. Especially because you just can't slot in cards over this. So so yeah,
Yeah. The runner meta especially. I feel like it's just a big question mark right now.
right. Because what changes here? I don't know.
And I don't know if it's as simple as just trying to sub out those cards for light cards. I don't think that will work.
Right. So
But we'll see. Time will tell.
yep. All right. Anyway, yeah, that's gonna be it for today. Thank you, Dakota, for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep. So, hopefully, we'll get some more of these. Obviously, you will definitely see us reacting after Worlds, because that's gonna be the big event. If you don't see us before then, wish everybody playing luck. So, thank you all for joining. Have a good night, everybody.